So this short video is called Developing Your Online Personal Learning Network, and it's been prepared by myself, Ray Jones, from Plymouth University, with support by Pam Nelms. Twitter. We know what Twitter is, don't we? It's all about ranting. It's about drivel. It's about Stephen Fry's breakfast. It's gossip. Who's Jennifer Aniston sleeping with just at the moment? But actually, it's more than that. In one part of Twitter, maybe just a little bit up there, there's some useful academic and professional discussion going on. The outline of this short video is to give you some examples of the opportunities and pitfalls of being online as a qualified clinician. We'll think about how e-health is developing and why clinicians need to have skills in this area, to tell you a bit about the PUNK initiative, and think about how you're going to continue with your personal learning network.
Hello there, my name's Anne Cooper. I'm the National Clinical Lead for Nursing at the Department of Health Informatics Directorate. I just wanted to talk to you today about social media and its use in nursing and in healthcare in general. So what do I mean by social media? What is it that I'm actually talking about? Social media is an evolution in the way that we can communicate using something called Web 2. And it includes lots of things that you've probably heard of, things like Facebook, Twitter, blogging and YouTube. And all of those things I think have interesting potential for nurses. Why do I think we need to engage with social media? Well, I think the patients and families who we care for actually are engaging with social media. So at the very least, I think we need to understand the world that they're living in. But I think it has more exciting potential than that, and I think it has lots of opportunities for us as professionals to use social media for professional purposes. So how did I get involved in social media? I've been on Facebook for quite a long time, and I'm incurably sociable and like to stay in contact with people. So I've had a Facebook account for quite a long time, but I'm very aware that I don't invite people from work to be my friends there. It's my social and family space. I can make sure that my security settings are set so that I can be sociable with my family and friends there. But I was introduced to Twitter by a friend at work, actually, a colleague at work, who said to me, "You really must get involved in Twitter." So I actually went onto Twitter and thought, I don't get this. I really don't understand what this has to offer to me, and I think that was one of my first learning points, really, that social media isn't instantaneous. It's something that you need to learn how to use, and you have to find the space where you feel comfortable. So I created an account on Twitter and I started lurking. Lurking is a Twitter term which means that you watch what everybody else is doing for a while. But then, because of the nature of me, I started to want to engage with other professionals on there, so I started tweeting. One of the things that I think is quite important about social media is that it's a very personal thing, in that you really need to have a personality. So there was a point at which I decided I wanted to be a professional on social media, but that I actually needed to be me. I needed to have a way of being me in social media on Twitter. So eventually, over time, I've found a way of being a professional, being me, and being able to be myself and have a personality. I think that it's an absolutely fantastic way of staying up to date. One of the things that I say to people about it is that I know things before my boss, which is fantastic. So when there's major announcements made about the health services or about nursing, generally Twitter knows about it before anybody else. But I think there are some pitfalls, there are some things that you need to be aware of. I would recommend that you looked at the NMC guidelines for using social media to give you the professional context. If you're going to declare that you're a nurse on Twitter or in any social media, you need to be aware of those guidelines. Be clear why you're there. Be clear what it is that you're doing there. If you want to be there on Twitter or on any social media, in a Facebook forum, wherever, as a professional nurse, you need to understand that you are being a professional in the same way that you're being a nurse in any other setting. I'd say don't give up, give it time. Ask for advice from other people. That's one of the really, really positive things about social media. It's a very sharing environment where, particularly on Twitter, if you ask a question, somebody will try and help you. If you do just lurk, that's fine, and you don't have to be on all of these social media all of the time. You can find a way that works for you. I'm on it all the time because I love it, and it's part of my job really to stay professionally up to date. But equally, if you want to go on once a week just to find out what's going on more generally, that's fine too. Find a way that works for you. Engage with people. So if you're a specialist nurse in dermatology, I will guarantee that there are other specialist nurses on there, and you might well find that the thought leaders in your particular specialty are in some form of social media, and they will talk to you. Social media is inherently about communication. I think finally what I would like to say is I think we need to be more aware of what social media might do for us in the way that we engage with our patients and clients. I think we have to become more sophisticated as professionals in the way that we use these new forms of communication. There is massive potential for us to use these communication channels to provide care and to communicate with people in new ways. I'm just not sure that we understand how we're going to do that yet, but as professionals we should be taking up that leadership challenge. There's some fantastic work that's going on currently in the NHS Institute, and they're exploring how social media can support some of our work. I would just encourage you to have a go and get involved. Thank you.
First, we're going to just have a few guidelines. We introduced this topic to our students under the heading of digital professionalism, and within that we put a few of the do's and don'ts that we would expect our students. So it's maybe worth just going through some of those. I mean, we say to them, if you wouldn't be happy to say it to someone's face, don't say it online. We don't want any ranting, we don't want arguments online. And to remember really that posts online are permanent, and that we remind our students that these days many potential employers actually screen their job applicants by looking at their social network sites. There may be ethical considerations of whether they should be doing that or not, but they do. So if you're posting online, remember it's never going to go away. Some guidelines, more guidelines: don't disclose information about someone online that they have not already posted. So you need to just be careful about how you word things. So if you're going out later today, you could collect it you could collect it on the way to your STD clinic. As a healthcare professional, you need to strive to be evidence-based, and that's really the focus of this video. So we're trying to question the source and the accuracy of anything you post. As you know, there's a lot of rubbish on the internet, so we need to think about retweeting and reposting indiscriminately. It is worth thinking that why we need to do that, and the obvious reason is that e-health is developing and clinicians need skills in this area. With apologies for grammar, e-health is a term used for the use of the internet, apps by patients and professionals, including things like discussion forums for people with diabetes, Skype consultations, whether or not you should have email, nurse-run telehealth services for people with CPD, patients using their GP's website for repeat prescriptions, question and answer web pages run by health professionals, and behaviour change websites or apps. Those are just some of the examples. I'm sure you could give many more. Here's another one: online patient feedback. There will be your hospital or your trust may appear in some of these comments on patient opinion. There may be discussion forums, either run by patients themselves or perhaps led by nurses or GPs or allied health professionals. And of course Twitter. And there's a lot of stuff going on Twitter. So some trusts are tweeting. Here's Manchester CCG, and there are video consultations. So we've seen it in NHS Direct. There's a lot of talk about using Skype for online consultations. It'll come it's getting there. And clinicians need to be able to assess the good and the bad. They need to be able to know whether information is leading to bad self-diagnosis and hypochondria, or whether it's actually being helpful. So you need to have an appreciation of e-health, and you need to know how best to use e-learning as part of your blended lifelong learning, and you need to know how to be professional online as a clinician. So, why Twitter? Well, you've heard from Anne Cooper as to why this is quite a good idea. It's useful. Many of us finding Twitter really very useful. And here's some examples. You've got Natalie Sylvie here, just publishing a few things in the limits of the character limit that you've got on Twitter. You can put links through to articles, through to videos, and you can include the link of the person who's the author, in this case Kate Granger. You can start having discussions, and you'll see, if you're not familiar with this Twitter, you'll see how discussions go, bringing in people, and because it's an open forum, many people may join Twitter during a discussion, and then that discussion may fizzle out, but you might then follow it up online or face-to-face by email. So with our students, we're tweeting with Plymouth University, and we're invented two words, punks and peers, to describe what we're doing with these students. Punk is the Plymouth University nursing cohort, and we've got punk accounts for all the 3 years of the nursing curriculum, and the peers are the public involvement in education and research, and they're peer groups. We're asking our students to recruit members of the public, qualified nurses, qualified health professionals, and perhaps members of the public, to follow them on Twitter so that they can, with their own peer group, discuss these health topics. So it's a special type of personal learning network. You may have heard that term before, personal learning network. And we see this as the start of the students' lifelong learning. And for you, it's an opportunity for practicing clinicians to stay plugged in to the university. So what are they going to be discussing on Twitter? Well, there may be things like, are there times when a health professional can or should be anonymous? So thinking about anonymity, thinking about hello, my name is Ray Jones, thinking about when you should be anonymous and when you should be named. We may look at particular treatments or management of conditions. So how do you think children should be managed when they have a temperature? Here we can get our students talking to members of the public, and perhaps professional nurses or medics or other allied health professionals. We may ask things more about the internet. So has the information and support for health on the internet been a good or a bad thing, and why? Do you think availability of apps for health will widen the divide between the haves and the have-nots, so sort of the public health inequalities aspects? Now, if you've got topics that you'd like to suggest, either in the future via Twitter or now by email to me, please do so. And within this, we want our students to consider the meaning of evidence and the need for research. So they're going to be discussing that with you, other professionals, with other students, and with members of the public. So you can follow these @punk accounts, and you can put forward topics for discussion. So you could enlist, for example, the help of our students in finding and weighing up the evidence. You can use this forum to get public input to discuss what they see as important. You will be well aware that all good research involves the public to get the public's perception of what we're doing and whether it seems worthwhile. And then on your own Twitter account, you can follow various thought leaders, be kept up to date with the latest presentations, papers, reports, media